Hey guys, it's Drew again. I want to do a video response to my very good friend Jason over at Mr. Fisher Bike. He wanted us to show off 10 different vintage cards because he's really trying to get back into vintage. And you know me, I had to put a little spin on it, so let's check it out and see what I came up with. So Jason's a great guy and is super supportive. He's kind of one of the OGs within this YouTube community. He wanted us to show off 10 different vintage cars because he's really trying to push himself back into vintage. And I felt this is a great opportunity to show off different parts of my collections. Now, some of these cards I've shown before, but I wanted to do a little bit of a spin on it, not just show 10 of my favorite vintage cards, but I wanted to talk about 10 cards that when I received the card, I literally thought, I cannot believe I own this card. And so I'm going to do this chronologically from when I received these cards because there's different points within my collecting life that I really could not believe. I can't believe I own this card. And the way that I got them, whether it was a gift, whether it was through a trade, whether it was through saving up money and buying stuff, or just kind of coming up lucky and being like, I can't believe I came across this card for what I did. But that's the kind of spin I wanted to put on it, was showing off different cards, talking about how I got them or when I got them, and I cannot believe I owned this card. So the very first one goes back to when I was much younger, and yeah, I'm going to say it's vintage, even though it's not really vintage. Most people wouldn't put it in the vintage category, but it's nearly 35 years old now. And you know, it was back in the day when card collecting was in the middle of its huge boom going on, and it was one of those things where it was the card. It was like, as a kid, you couldn't even imagine owning this card because you're looking at Beckett, and I remember very specifically at the time I received this card, it was booking at, remember that phrase, booking at? It was booking at 32.50, and funny to think now they were putting in 50-cent increments within Beckett to say how much a card was worth. But it was booking at 32.50, you know, and my biggest card at that point may have been $8 or something. And but I had piled a little thing together. It was at a local card store where I grew up, and I put together a trade with a little bit of cash, and I was able to get my very first 1989 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card. Now, I own, I don't know, 3 or so copies of this card, but this one specifically is not the original one that I have. That's actually in a different case. But this one is special to me because this was actually a gift from another YouTube for my birthday last year. So Dave, I still appreciate it. I still have this card, and you know who you are, but the fact that I owned this card, I remember just staring at it and thinking, I cannot believe I own this card. I know you guys have that same feeling with different stuff in your collection. You just couldn't get past the fact that you owned it. So this is the first card that I wanted to show off. The other ones are all much more vintage. So the next one is my very first Mickey Mantle, and I've talked about it before, but this was a gift to me. And when I first owned this card, I could not believe that I owned my very own Mickey Mantle card. Again, staring at it, I looked straight through all the issues, the damage of it, the surface wear, the creases, the writing on it. It didn't matter to me because I owned a Mickey Mantle baseball card, and it was just, it blew my mind that I got it. So that's my second one, is this specific 1968 Topps Mickey Mantle card. And the third one, and I've told the story before, and I'm sure I'll tell it again, but this is to me one of the most beautiful cards that's ever been created. And it's funny because recently I've heard more and more talk about, you know, the place within the hobby for this card, but it's a 1953 Bowman color Pee Wee Reese, and this specific version, I have two versions of it. I have this one, which is obviously creased and it's got some condition issues, but this specific card has a lot of value to me because of how I got it. So someday I'll tell the story again, but my wife actually got me this card. I find it interesting that there seems to be two camps on this story. There are people that feel that this card is underrated, or overrated rather, and then there's the people who are correct. So anyway, but that I couldn't believe when I got this card. I just held it and stared at it for so long. I couldn't believe that I owned this card within my collection. So 53 Bowman Pee Wee Reese. And then another one, there was a card when you were growing up and you would look, rookie cards, and rookies were always, and still are, more expensive than most other cards. And at the time, in the early 90s, the oldest rookie card of a current player, of course, was still Nolan Ryan. He was still pitching. And you would look at George Brett or Robin Yount or Dave Winfield, who were playing, but they were in the 70s and were much more reasonably priced compared to other guys. But the Nolan Ryan was just insane. And I remember when I was able to find this one, the 68 Nolan Ryan with Jerry Koosman on it. And I found it on eBay, and I was able to win the bid. And man, I could not believe it, because this is one of the cards that, if you look through Beckett or magazines or other publications, and they would talk about, great cards or whatever, they would always picture this card. And it's funny, my friend Chris from Missouri talks about it. He doesn't like this card because of the way Nolan Ryan wears his hat, but I specifically am drawn to that because, believe it or not, that's the way my dad wears a baseball cap still today. I call it, the Elmer Fudd look. It looks like Elmer Fudd's hunting cap, but that reminds me of my dad. And anyway, I really love this card, and I couldn't believe I owned it when I first came across being able to buy it. And then the next one is just a great card, and my wife found this for me and got it for me for Christmas, and I still, to this day, it's one of my top 3 cards within my collection because of the story behind it, because of its card, its significance within the hobby, and so many other things. But that's my 1953 Topps Satchel Paige. I still can't believe that I own this card, and I'm just absolutely in love with this card. There's so many great things about it. The fact that they still made one at his age, there was just so much stuff. He's got such a storied history within baseball, and it's great to know that I have this card. The next one, I don't think I've ever shown on YouTube before, but there was a point where I was trying to get all the Hall of Famers, or a playing day card of all Hall of Famers. I'm going to talk about a few cards in the next coming up within that realm of when I collected this stuff. But I remember finding this card and watching the bids and waiting for the auction to finish, and I finally put in my bid, and I won the card, and I couldn't believe it, and I still kind of can't believe it. It's not the greatest looking card of him, but it's really the only one that I could afford, and this is my 1951 Burke Ross Joe DiMaggio. And this is the example that I use within my Hall of Fame collection, that I have a Joe DiMaggio, but I cannot believe I own a Joe DiMaggio card. He's so very difficult, especially when you're collecting on a budget of any card. He didn't have any Topps, he didn't have any Bowman. His 49 leaf is beautiful, but man, it's expensive. And then everything else is kind of pre-war stuff. So it just gets really, really costly to be able to get a DiMaggio, but I was able to get one. I remember winning the bid, and I remember coming downstairs from the computer, and I was so excited. My wife said, "What?" I said, "I wanted DiMaggio." And she said, "Is that good?" "Oh yeah, that was really good." So I love this card, and I still can't believe that I have this card in my collection. And referring back to that, when I was trying to get a Hall of Famer, I remember I had every single Hall of Famer, a card example of every Hall of Famer that played from 1900 on, and except for one. And there was one card left, and it was a Honus Wagner. And of course, Honus Wagner has this place in our card community and history because of the T206, but there's a lot of other cards, but I couldn't find one. I couldn't afford one. And at that point in time, he was the last guy. And I had heard about this online community called Net54. And I know a lot of you guys know Net54. And if you don't, it's a great place, tons of knowledge. And I've been a member there for a long time now. But I remember signing up for it. And it asked me what a username, and I didn't have a common one. And I was so close to the finish line that I said, I don't know, I'm just almost done. I was almost done with this thing. So if you go on Net54 and you look up almost done, well, that's me, and that's my username. So when I signed up for it, and then I started, hey guys, I'm new on this community, whatever, and I put it out there, and lo and behold, someone had one, gave me a great deal on it. But this is my 1914 Polo Grounds Honus Wagner card, and this was the last card I needed to complete my Hall of Fame run way back then. And I feel like I'm almost done, because every time I get into a new collection or new series, I'm just almost done with collecting it. I think it's kind of a good name, but whatever. But yeah, my Honus Wagner card, that's another one that I just can't believe I own this card. Still can't believe I own it. And then this one, I came across a great deal on it, and I've learned to appreciate it more and more. I always knew its place in the hobby. I knew its place within his collecting, But you know, the more I look at it, the more I can't believe I own this card, or at least such a beautiful copy of it. And that's my 1949 Leaf Stan Musial. And this is just an insanely good copy. The color on it, the centering, you know, I actually like a little bit of that snowing in this case on that blue, but it's such a clear focus. And I love this card. I love this copy of this card. And again, I can't believe I own this card. And for you guys who watch my channel a lot, you know that I collect Carl Erskine. Carl Erskine is not a super expensive guy to collect. He doesn't have tons and tons of cards. It was very easy to get his mainstream cards, but the one that was really hard for me, because you just don't see it a whole lot, and when you do, it's expensive because it's an expensive set. But when I finally came across this, actually on Net54, someone had it and gave a great deal price on it. But this is my Wilson Franks Carl Erskine, you know, the angry hot dog vendor who threw a pack of hot dogs at him. But I love this set. You know, it screams 50s to me. Again, the great blue on it, the Brooklyn hat, the Dodgers across the jersey, the faux signature. It's got a great back to it, and I just love this card, and I love this set, and I can't believe I own this card. And then finally, this is one of my most recent pickups, and it's actually 2 years old. I really don't pick up much, but I actually sold, don't kill me for this, but you know what, I'm okay with this. I sold my Ernie Banks rookie card in order to afford this card. But, you know, I'm a big Pee Wee Reese fan, and I already showed my 53 Bowman, but the one card that was just impossible for me because of where it was, I just never thought I could afford it, to where I had to sell such a big card to be able to get this. But when I got this card, this is the final one to say, I can't believe I own this card, and that's my 1952 Topps high numbers Pee Wee Reese. And you know, selling a card to afford a different one is kind of tough. You know, Ernie Banks he definitely has a place, and his rookie card is iconic. But for me, it was worth being able to let that one go. It was definitely a sacrifice from my collection to get this, but I'm so very glad I did. And I still, when I look at this in my case, I think, I can't believe I own this card. So I appreciate it, Jason. You mean so much to so many people within this community. Your little tagline at the end, I hope people don't take it lightly. You know, just do something good for someone. I think that's just a beautiful way to look at this hobby and within this community. So I hope this is what you were looking for. There's 10 vintage cards that I just can't believe I own. I would love to hear some of the cards that you've got that you think, I just can't believe I own this card. Whether it's a high value, a low value, you found it, hard to find, or whatever. But I appreciate the time you guys are spending with me. So until next time, you guys be good.